Good morning. My name is Barbara Ozer. I'm with United Way of Greater Houston, and I am also privileged to serve on the Grants Committee for the Greater Houston COVID-19 Recovery Fund. Today, I am your facilitator for a webinar on unemployment insurance eligibility and access. We're really excited to have two great experts with us today, and we hope you're going to get a lot out of it. Before we turn it over to our experts, I want to give you a little few tips and tools that will help us through this session and hopefully get all of your questions answered as we go through. As each of the different speakers are speaking, you'll have opportunities to go into the Q&A and put questions that come up for you during their presentation. Once their presentation is over, we will go to the Q&A and I'll moderate a question and answer session based on the questions that are posted in the Q&A. I want to make sure that everybody knows that, as we all know, this is a fast-moving environment. Things are changing almost, if not daily, it feels like hourly sometimes. And so the information that we're bringing you today is the latest that we have, and it's the best of our information today. I believe last night a new package was just passed by the House for recovery. So it's ever evolving, ever moving. But today we're going to be focusing on unemployment, eligibility, and ways to support our clients, as well as specific issues regarding our immigrant populations. So I want to turn it over to our first speaker. And our first speaker is going to be Josie Toth. She's a regional facilitator for Workforce Solutions. And let me tell you just a little bit about Josie. Josie is with Workforce Solutions. She conducts job search skills and career exploration classes throughout the 13-county Houston-Galveston region. She has served in the military. Thank you for your service, Josie. And completed her Bachelor of Arts degrees in Liberal Studies, English, and is currently a member of the Spring ISD CTE. Josie enjoys encouraging others in their pursuit of meaningful work and envisions a world where all workers earn a livable wage. All right, so let's turn it over to Josie so she can kick us off with information on unemployed insurance, and she's going to speak about it much more eloquently than I do. Josie?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is share with you a PowerPoint, and then after I share with you the information on the PowerPoint, I will go over the websites so that way you're familiar with it and can share it with your clients. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. So I work with Workforce Solutions, which is the operating system of Gulf Coast careers. And we have 27 full-time offices and 11 part-time offices throughout the Houston-Galveston region. And these are some of the services that we provide. For additional information and resources, you can visit Workforce Solutions for this type of information. Even though our career offices are currently closed, we do have staff that are available to still continue helping with job matching, career counseling, and employer services during the normal business hours that we had before, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And on our website, we have a link that is called Jobs Now. And again, I will show you where to find that information on our website, and also childcare for essential workers. To apply for unemployment benefits, your clients can access Workforce Solutions, and we have a direct link for the unemployment benefits page. We can show clients how to file for unemployment insurance, but it's TWC, Texas Workforce Commission in Austin, that handles claims and benefits. The unemployment benefits page on Workforce Solutions will show clients how to contact TWC to file a claim, check status of a claim and benefits, and more. Two things to remember during this pandemic is that Texas law normally requires TWC to hold benefits for the first payable week, which is referred to as the waiting week. But because of the pandemic, this is currently suspended. So applicants won't have to wait during that waiting week. Where unemployment benefits applicants were required to register for work search on workintexas.com and conduct a minimum number of work search activities per week, this has also been temporarily waived. However, once this has been lifted, then if unemployment insurance, if they were receiving unemployment insurance and they weren't working before or weren't job searching before, they will need to after this has been lifted. It's also important to be familiar with how the COVID-19 pandemic may affect your client's eligibility before making an application, and we'll cover this in the next few slides. TWC will determine which pandemic unemployment benefit programs your clients are eligible for and notify them by either mail or email. So make sure to request benefit payments on the date listed on the filing instructions TWC provides, and apply every 2 weeks after that on your filing day. So your client, if they are eligible, they will receive some information, and they have to follow those instructions on the date that they need to file, and also every 2 weeks after you file to request payments. If your client must contact TWC, we do apologize for any difficulties they may be having getting through to submit their claim. TWC, as you know, is experiencing a great number of claims and is making continual changes to keep up with it. And so one of those changes is effective April 13th, the telecenter hours have expanded to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, and this includes Sundays as well. TWC also has a chat function, and I'll show you that. They call it Larry the Chat Box, bot, B-O-T, and it's an automated program that allows individuals to enter information relevant to their claims. It's not a live person, it's a virtual assistant. And the reason why they did that is because they noticed that a lot of phone calls were common questions that Larry the chat bot can answer. And also, we highly recommend that you get familiar with the websites so that you know how to refer clients to the information that they need. Including the waiting week and job search requirements being waived, these are some other changes. Okay, so before, denial only overturned by appeal. So now TWC will review. Ongoing job search requirements, they do not have to do that during this time. However, again, when this is lifted, they will have to start doing their job search requirements. Subject to waiting week, no waiting week. Weekly payments based on period wages. So now it's weekly payments based on base period wages plus $600 per week. Request payments biweekly, and that remains the same. Payment hold requires call and no call required. So as you know, the March 27, 2020, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security passed, and this stimulus bill is the bill that funds the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, the acronym PEUC, which allows states to extend unemployment benefits beyond what they've received by an additional 13 weeks. Jobless benefits that expire at the end of 26 weeks can be extended. The PEUC program increases weekly benefits by $600 for those UI beneficiaries affected by COVID-19. If your client has recently exhausted unemployment benefits, TWC will determine if they qualify for UI and notify them by mail or email. And this is important, they do not have to call. TWC will automatically determine if they qualify for continued services. In addition, the PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, provides up to 39 weeks of benefits and is available starting with weeks of employment beginning on or after January 27 and ending before December 31. Individuals who are self-employed, the last column, seeking part-time employment or whom otherwise would not qualify for UI or extended benefits and PEUC. The maximum unemployment insurance is 26 weeks. For those who qualify for PUA, again, the last column, benefits can extend up to a maximum of 39 weeks through December 31st. And this chart is also on our website, and I'll show you that as well. So there is some fraud that you need to be aware of, some indications that might indicate that you're a victim or one of your clients is a victim is someone pretending to be a TWC specialist. TWC specialists will never ask for your credit card number. So if they ask for a credit card number, it's probably a scam. If the individual says that there is a fee for processing the claim, all of this is applying for unemployment benefits. There is no charge to this at all. And if an individual asks for more than the last 4 digits of a bank account and routing number, it's a scam. So TWC Workforce Solutions, we take privacy very seriously. So inform your clients that if an individual claims that they're a TWC specialist, they should not be asking for a card number or a fee to process or ask for more than the last 4 digits of a bank account or routing number. So now we're going to talk about some scenarios that qualify or don't qualify for unemployment benefits. Okay. So the Texas Unemployment Insurance Program pays benefits to those who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. The Department of Labor guidance has permitted significant flexibility for states to provide UI services related to COVID-19. So remember again that 2 things have been waived, the waiting week and job search requirements as well during this time. Naturally, there may be additional questions or scenarios that are resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's important to note that if any clients are receiving compensation in any form from their employer, such as pay, sick, leave, paid time off, that will affect their eligibility. And so now we're going to go through some examples of some scenarios that may be present with your clientele. So these scenarios are examples of when your client may be eligible. And I will also share with you when we review the websites where you can find this information as well. So essentially, if the chances of you being eligible is high if you self-quarantine on your own without your employer's permission, and lose your job and contract COVID, you still could be eligible. Employer orders employees to self-quarantine and loses their benefits, you could be eligible. Self-quarantine by government order, if you had to stay home for a sick family member and laid off or reduced hours, you could be eligible. And these are examples where your client is most likely not eligible. So if your client self-quarantines without their employer's permission and does not contract COVID-19. So for example, if I said, you know what, I just want to be safe, I didn't get permission from my employer, I decide to stay at home, that employer asked me to come back and I say no, and I never contract COVID-19 during that time, I may not be eligible for unemployment benefits. Or if the employer said, Josie, go ahead and stay home, however, we will still pay you, or you can use your accrued vacation time, leave time during this time, and you can come back you know, when you've exhausted those, or you know, when we're ready to have you back again, then I may not be eligible. So before applying for unemployment benefits, this is the basic information that your clients will need to get started. Note that if this is their first time to file for unemployment claims, they do not need to already have a PIN or reset their PIN before they apply. They will do that during the application process. And remind them to have a journal dedicated to unemployment benefits and to write this information down. Most of the phone calls to TWC is, I forgot my password, I forgot my PIN. And so that really takes up a lot of their time. And if they just write it down, then more people could get through for more important concerns. So before applying for unemployment benefits, have this already available. Gather all your paperwork, research, read the websites. I would advise your clients to do that before anything else, is read these websites, have a journal, so that way you can write down all the important information and gather all this information before you call or apply online. So they can either call or apply online. Online is, of course, the easiest. You can file anytime. And if you're eligible, you can expect your claim to begin the Sunday of the week you submitted your application. And after filing your application, they can go to workintexas.com. That is our state's job bank, which automatically launches after they fill out their application. So if they want to start job searching right away, they can. TWC is experiencing a lower volume for online applications between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So if for some reason they can't get online, if they get some errors, they may want to try to apply online during those hours, 10 p.m., 6 a.m. If you don't have computer access, you can definitely apply by phone. how to request payments. So be sure to request payment on the day that that's designated to you when you file the claim, and they will get that information. Do not wait until you receive a response to your claim before requesting a payment. So payment should be requested on your designated day the same week you apply and every week thereafter. So again, once this has been lifted, claimants will have to start job searching again. And that's where Workforce Solutions really comes in to help them. Not that we can't help them now, but that's where we can really, really help them with their job search. Claimants will receive written notification that will also include their work search requirement amount, meaning like how many applications did they submit per week. Effective date of requirement, which is 14 days after change. So they will start having to job search after 14 days of the change. So when this has been lifted and they need to, and it's required for them to start to job search, you can register for work in person or when our offices opens up, or you can call our offices until then. Definitely register online in workintexas.com and document your work search activities. And this includes things like the company, how you applied, whether it was online or you dropped it off in person or filled out an application, if you followed up with them, things like that. And apply for and accept suitable work. Additional next steps, if you're needing childcare arrangements, I will show you that on our website as well too. We can also help with preparing your clients for job interviews by conducting mock interviews. And here's a list of helpful numbers. We also have how-to guides. And again, there's so much information, understandably so, both on TWC sites and our site, workforcesolutions.com. And so if I was a client, if I needed unemployment benefits, my first step would be to read everything about it first before I start to call or make phone calls, because the wait time is so long. I don't want to get frustrated. I want to call first. I want to read everything that I can first. So we do have some how-to guides as well. And these are PDF files that they can save on their computer or phone. So are there any questions, or can I show y'all the website first?
So Josie, we have one question right now.
Okay.
It's from Lisa at Chinese Community Center. And the question is, are these how-to guides in any other languages besides English?
Very good question. I don't believe so. The last time I checked, I don't think so. I don't believe so. I apologize, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the websites. First website I am sharing is Workforce Solutions, WRKsolutions.com. In blue, this is where you'll find the most updated information on COVID-19. So the hours. For a list of active job openings, see the jobs now. So these are jobs that employers are hiring immediately, that they need immediate help. It's in no particular order. And as you can see, they're in different locations all across the Houston, Galveston area. So that link, you can find that real quickly right up here. If you need childcare, these two websites are available for you. Collaborative for Children, but their website is Collab for Children. And so all the information you need, how to register. Okay. And then Texas Frontline. These are for essential workers as well.
Josie, just so that you are aware, we cannot see the links that you open, the new ones, as you're opening them.
Thank you. Okay, because I have to
okay.
stop sharing and share it. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay. So, but you know that they're there. So to make this more efficient, I apologize, and for the other speakers, I'm just going to show you those two websites, and so that I don't have to stop sharing and continue and share again. So all that information is up here in the blue, and to find TWC unemployment information from Workforce Solutions, you will scroll down a bit and you will see unemployment benefits. Okay. For individuals, you hover your cursor for individuals, and if they want to start job searching or finding some information on jobs, financial aid, you know, we're still doing those services. Okay, so this I do want to share with you. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if you click on unemployment benefits, this is where all the charts that you saw in the PowerPoint presentation, this is where it's at. So you can direct your clients to wrksolutions.com, scroll down a bit, and click on unemployment benefits, and they will see all of these helpful charts. How to reset your claim. So everything that you need to get started. And these are the list of how-to guides. Okay. So now I'm going to share with you TWC. So this is TWC's site, twc.texas.gov. And if you, this right here is information for COVID-19. So specifically for employers, job seekers, and childcare. And you can also hover your cursor over here, job seekers and employers, and click on information on COVID-19 for job seekers. If you click on that, I'm going to share with you what you see on that screen. So here, if you scroll down, you'll see the waivers here and the instructional videos. You can click on these individual links to take you to that information. What I like to do when I research this site is I just simply scroll down and I read all of this information. Okay, so this site also has really helpful graphs. I also recommend that you suggest to your clients to sign up for updates. And this is where you can find that unemployment eligibility scenarios for job seekers that we talked about and how to apply for benefits. So all of these links are very helpful. So as you can see, they can glean a lot of information from the websites even before calling or applying online. I can't stress that enough, that I would highly recommend that they read this and look over the PDF files, wrksolutions.com, before they call. Take notes in their journal, and that way they can determine whether they really do need to call first.
Great. Thank you so much, Josie. Lots of great information.
You're welcome.
I want to remind people about the two websites that you referred to. Workforce Solutions, which is wrksolutions.com, as well as the Texas Workforce Commission at twc.texas.gov. Diana has put them in the chat box if you'd like to get them. Sonia with Memorial Assistance Ministries noted that that when you go to the Workforce Solutions page, the first link, connect with us Monday through Friday, there's a big red button, a file for unemployment, but it's not sending them to the right page. So that's just FYI. We have a question that has come up.
Yes.
Lisa from Chinese Community Center. Is the process for applying for unemployment the same for contract workers, those on a 1099 forms?
Is the process the same? Yes, they still would read, the websites, determine if they're eligible, and if they are, they call or apply online.
So Josie, my understanding is with the new Care Response Act, that people who normally wouldn't be qualified for unemployment, such as people working in the gig economy, like Uber drivers and other types of contract workers, they are now eligible. Is that correct?
TWC determines eligibility on a case-by-case basis. So I wouldn't say, like, yes, I know those changes, but just because they're in that field doesn't mean that they could qualify. So the TWC still determines on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So yeah.
Josie, do you mind repeating some of the kind of context you shared on our call yesterday about kind of the importance of reading before making the call, like on the emotion front, and then also the example you talked about for the neighbors and how that could lead to confusion? I think that makes context. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Diana. Yes. So typically my experience when I'm helping people with unemployment benefits, they come to me and they say, my friend said, or my neighbor said that they received this, and I'm in the same situation, but do you think I can receive it? And so again, because TWC, even though that there's situations may be similar, when they start talking to TWC and sharing their complete story, TWC may hear something that's, yes, you are eligible. Yes, you are not eligible. So it's good to talk to your neighbors and friends for support, but definitely it's so much better to get the real facts and information from reading the sites and calling TWC to clarify any situation, because they will determine whether you are eligible or not based on the story that you share with them.
And Josie, if someone is turned down for unemployment, could you talk a little bit about appealing that decision?
Yes, so right now, hold on, I pulled down my PowerPoint, but they would, so I believe that's on here too. They, for the appeals. The appeals process, I don't have the complete like process that they go through, but denial, so before denial only was overturned by appeal. Now TWC will review for eligibility. So they will automatically review. It's still good to, you know, note like, okay, I haven't heard from them, or and then definitely contact them if you feel like you have a case for unemployment benefits.
Okay, and it looks like David just posted in the Q&A
Awesome.
some frequently asked questions. There's a document on twc.texas.gov on frequently asked questions regarding unemployment related to the pandemic. So I'm assuming that's where there would be answers to things that are specific, that are new to unemployment, that are coming out of this epidemic.
Absolutely. And you just triggered my memory. Another excellent place to get like updates immediately is to like their social media sites. So TWC has, and Workforce Solutions has several media sites that they are involved in, like Facebook, Twitter, things like that. I think LinkedIn as well too. But yeah, I would definitely like some of those pages because they're putting up information really fast on those social media sites. And those social media sites you can also find on the TWC website.
Great. And Josie, one last question.
Yes.
If one of our participants on the call has a client that is going to be applying for unemployment insurance, should they direct them to Workforce Solutions, or should they try to help them walk through it first? Or is that too hard to answer on this call? And
Oh no, like, so for example, if, you know, I'm working for one of your organizations and someone says, you know, I just get laid off and I don't know what to do. So I would, you know, either, well, we can't sit with them, unfortunately, but over the phone, I would ask them if they can either get on a computer or on their phone. And I would, my first step would be to walk them through wrksolutions.com and twc.texas.gov to share with them where they can find this information first, read it, suggest that they get a journal, write down the most important questions. After they read that information, then I want you to call me back and let's see how I can help you the next step. So educating them, showing them where they can educate themselves, I believe is the first step. And then they call me back, and then, you know, okay, so what did you learn? So now I want to assess their understanding of the information. I might, you know, ask them a few questions just to test their understanding, and then get more information about their situation and try to help out in that way.
great. And then one last question we just got. Is there any difference about the timeline in terms of the process, waiting time, et cetera, if you're filing with a 1099 versus a W-2?
That is the time. Say the first part again.
They're wondering if there's a difference in timing in terms of like how long it takes if you're filing with 1099 or a contract employee versus someone who would be a full or part-time employee with a W-2?
That I don't know specifically, but if I'm just thinking about it, if that depends on the clients, like, do they have all their paperwork in line? Do they have all the information available so that TWC can make a judgment quickly? So it really just depends on how organized applicants are. Does that make sense? Like, so if TWC comes back and says, you don't have this telephone number, just little things like that can extend receiving your benefits. So make sure that, again, read everything on this site. Be prepared with all your paperwork, because the more that you're organized, the more that you have the information that they are requesting, the faster that they can process your information.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much for your questions. And Josie, thank you so much. It's
Thank
great
you.
information.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to Andrea, because she's got lots of great information too. Quickly, Andrea, she oversees health legal initiatives, including Deportation Defense Houston, the Immigrant Rights Hotline, and the many health working groups that tackle issues from notarial fraud to asylum. Andrea also provides health members with timely legal and policy updates and advises the nonprofit legal services providers on, I just lost my words. Oh, anyway, she does advising for nonprofit legal service providers here in Houston on immigrant issues. So I'm turning it over to Andrea. Welcome.
Okay, thank you all so much for inviting me to come. Thank you to all the grantees for listening to this and caring about how it impacts immigrants. I know all of you see immigrants in your work, and unfortunately, mostly like undocumented workers are not going to qualify for most, but I'll talk about that. What we're going to go over is how the Families First and CARES Act on healthcare, unemployment, cash assistance, food and nutrition affect immigrants. I'm going to frame that in the public charge context, and then end with some housing stuff locally here in Texas. So as a refresher on public charge, some of you may be hearing about this for the first time, some of you may be dealing with the fallout for years now, but essentially what public charge is it's a test when someone is applying for very specific immigration benefits, and if they're deemed a public charge, then they are not going to be granted that application, so they're going to be denied. So specifically, this is people who are applying for lawful permanent residence before USCIS. It's going to apply to people who are already lawful permanent residents who leave the country for more than 180 days, that's about 6 months, and come back. And then it also applies to those who are seeking a visa to come into the United States from outside of the country. So that includes consular processing, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. It does not, so there's all different kinds of immigration statuses, right? There's people with no documentation, permanent residents, US citizens, and a lot in between. We have refugees, asylees, DACA holders, U visa holders. And in order to get many of those immigration statuses, there's no public charge test. The public charge test only comes up before USCIS when you're going for lawful permanent residence. So if someone has DACA and then when they're applying for DACA, no public charge test. But if they become eligible to become a lawful permanent resident, then they're going to have the test. So everyone's procedure is very different, and the moment that they're in could change tomorrow, which is why it's a little bit difficult to make broad generalizations. And then obviously, as non-immigration attorneys, you all cannot counsel someone on whether or not they should stay on benefits or get off because of the impact it might have on their case. But we're going to talk about some kind of takeaways at the end. But essentially, if someone is not seeking a green card or entry, then public charge isn't a main concern. And then for those who are seeking green cards, there's a lot of exemptions. So you can see all of those on this list. And when we talk about public charge, people have sort of made it equivalent to having public benefits, but that's not correct, right? Public charge is a totality of circumstances test that takes into account 5 factors. And really what they're trying to get at is whether or not someone's going to be financially stable on their own. So they're going to be looking at your age, whether you're of working age, your health is going to permit you to work, your education and skills. Do you have a high school diploma? Do you speak English? How many family members are you supporting or being supported by? And then your income and assets. And so your income and assets is where they're going to be considering public benefits. If you're on public benefits, which ones and for how long. So no one factor is determinative. They're going to be looking at everything when they're making this. So it's important to keep that in mind. When we are looking at the benefits that are covered, it's this list and this list only. So anything else is not going to be on here. Disaster relief, emergency Medicaid, entirely local or state plans that aren't cash assistance, CHIP, WIC, school breakfast and lunches, energy assistance, transportation vouchers, unemployment, tax credits. Oh, sorry, that just totally went forward too much. Pell Grants. Anything that is not this list is not considered public charge by USCIS. And under Medicaid, there are certain exceptions. So you can take a look at that later when you have the slide. So what we're thinking about takeaways is most undocumented immigrants are not going to qualify to use the benefits that are included in the new rule anyway. And they're not on the path to lawful permanent residence. So this public charge test is never going to come up for them. And if someone is on that path to a green card, then most likely they're in an exempt category. So this is a very, very small category of people that it applies to. And the purpose by the Trump administration is to instill fear in immigrants and to cause immigrants to drop out of the programs, which is what has happened. I do want to note that consular processing is different. It is under the State Department, not USCIS, and those rules are different. So if you hear someone saying, I'm consular processing, I have to go out of the country to come back in, these are triggers that they really need to speak to an attorney. So that's sort of like a refresh. Now I kind of want to go into how COVID-19 affects public charge. So USCIS has been very specific to say that testing, treatment, preventative services like vaccines, once they're available, will not impact the public charge analysis, even if you're getting on a benefit in order to get that treatment. So if your child is the one who's applying for lawful permanent residence, well, they probably wouldn't be eligible, but for whoever is in this narrow category, if they're getting Medicaid in order to get that treatment, testing, or preventative services, then that won't be considered for the public charge test. And then if someone loses their job or isn't able to go to school because of COVID-19 and the isolation and social distancing measures, then they should include all of that information with evidence in their application. So it may not affect them. Again, it's totality, so they're going to be looking at all the circumstances. And if this is a blip because you lost your job, but once this blip is over, you know, you have the background, you have the skills to be able to get back up, it's probably going to be fine. But again, for folks who are already in the process or planning to apply very near future, they should speak with an attorney. Other folks, you can probably give information about the public charge rule and let them make that decision for themselves if they want to or not. And always, USCIS will not consider the use of public benefits by a child in the parent's public charge determination. Now, that is different for consular processing, which is why I keep harping on this consular processing. And if you want more information, I've included a link here at the bottom with the details. All right, so now kind of shifting gears to CARES Act and Families First. Under healthcare, everyone has a right to access healthcare regardless of immigration status. You know, it's so important right now. And so we need to understand what the federal government has created for undocumented immigrants and then what our local resources can do for them. So neither CARES nor Families First alter Medicaid eligibility for immigrants, which means there's no specific programs for uninsured immigrants. They could have made it disaster related public benefits, which would not have considered immigration status. So they very specifically did not include undocumented immigrants in this package. For those who have some kind of lawful status, because again, when we're talking about immigrants, it's a broad group with lots of different statuses. If they don't already have subsidized health insurance, they can do that in the marketplaces. And then, of course, there are amazing local health centers and clinics where immigrants can get low cost or free care. And HILSC has a great resource called Access Q. I'm going to go into it actually live on the website later, but I just want to give you a sense of what it is. It's a database of resources for agencies working with immigrants in Greater Houston. So we take into account how these service providers give services to immigrants, and all of you are encouraged to create a profile or add to a profile. We have an immigrant accessibility index where organizations can check and see, am I as immigrant friendly as I think I am? So do we ask for a Texas state driver's license? Oh, well, immigrants don't get, undocumented immigrants won't get a Texas state driver's license. So if you're asking for that at the door, but you also think that you're open to undocumented immigrants, you're really not. You're putting up a barrier at the first instance. So things of that nature. And then we have a great staff person who can, Katie Atkis, I think she might be on the call, who can help you become more immigrant friendly, improve your access to immigrants if you realize after taking this internal assessment that your agency is not as open to immigrants as you think. So think about that and we'll come back to it later. When we're talking about clinics and health centers, a lot of folks may be concerned that if they go to these public places that ICE will apprehend them. And ICE has said that they are not going to be conducting enforcement operations near or at healthcare facilities and hospitals and the like. So that's important to know. I will say, however, that this is not a law, it's not a regulation, it's a discretionary policy by ICE, so they can decide not to stick to it. That being said, there have only been a handful of instances, and none very recently, where this has happened. I mean, us being in Texas, we probably heard about them on the border, is mostly where they've been happening. So it's certainly important to understand where that fear is coming from, but it's also not very likely to happen. And if it does happen, then HILSC will use its resources to kind of uplift that experience. And again, these are more information here with the links, which you'll get at the PowerPoint. We talked a lot about unemployment insurance. We haven't talked about very much about paid sick leave or family leave under FMLA and stimulus checks. I'm not going to so much talk about how you get these or who's eligible, broadly speaking. I'm going to focus on immigrant eligibility for these. And I'm not an expert on this. I've learned a lot about public charge since it's come up, but this is very new. And so I'm not going to have all the answers. But if you have questions that I can't answer, we can certainly research them and try to get back to you or update our COVID-19 resource document, which I'm also going to talk about as another great resource for questions that you may have about what's happening locally and impact on immigrants. So in order to claim unemployment insurance, immigrants have to have valid employment authorization, both during the base period for that claim and at the time that they file. So that means that people who have an ITIN, who are undocumented, are not going to be able to get stimulus checks at all. If people are living in mixed status households, only the person who has a social security number and work authorization is going to be able to apply as an individual, not as a family. Now, if one of the parents applies and has a child, they can add the child onto there. In terms of the needing the status both at the time of base filing and at the time of filing the time that you lost the job and when you file, this can be problematic because, as we all know, USCIS has shut down appointments. They're open on a limited scale. They are still processing things, but what already has been a very slow process has gotten even slower. So it may be that people lose their employment authorization, like they filed in time, but they haven't gotten a response and their EAD has expired. So that's going to be something to watch out for. In terms of emergency paid sick leave, this is something that does not have any immigration status requirements. There are, I think I'm a little tight on time, so I'm not going to run through all this, but you have it here to read. And if there's violations and an undocumented person is not getting emergency paid sick leave, they can contact the Wage and Hour Division of the U.S. Department of Labor, which does not inquire into workers' immigration status. And there's a lot of workers, or there's a couple, not a lot, of worker centers here in Houston, Equal Justice Center, Workers Defense Project, Fe Justicia, which can help folks when their wages are stolen. Under Extended Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, there is 12 weeks of pay available for those who are unable to work because they're caring for a child. Again, there's no immigration-related restriction, but people have to have worked there at least for 30 days. And for employers under 20 staff, there's no promise that your job will be there when you come back. So no job protection. And there's also kind of exclusions on this. 500 companies with 500 or greater employees are not subject to it. Federal employees, health frontline staff, which is a lot of immigrants, and businesses with less than 50 people can get an exemption if it's going to put them out of business. Now, the stimulus checks, I started talking about, why did I talk about it before I got to this slide? I already talked about it, so sorry about that, but now you have this information. I neglected to mention before that if you're a citizen, if you're not a citizen or lawful permanent resident, but would otherwise qualify, you have to show that you primarily reside in the US, and that's a tax requirement, not an immigration requirement, so it means different things in that context. Right, so people are eligible even if they haven't filed 2018 or 29 taxes, but they have to enter that information affirmatively. So if your immigrant clients, refugees, asylees, not asylum seekers, but those that have already granted asylum, can put their information into there. And then here's a list of who will automatically get the qualifications and also a link to where folks can check the status of their economic impact payment. Shifting to food and nutrition, SNAP has been expanded. So every Texas household that is already on food stamps is receiving the maximum benefits allowed for their household size. And if they aren't already receiving that, they'll get bumped up to it. If someone got additional benefits in April, they'll get them again by May 15th. And households that had to renew their food stamps benefit in March, April, or May can receive an extension. So we're going to talk about who qualifies for food stamps and what's available to those who cannot get food stamps. Essentially, you have to be a qualified immigrant. There's a long list of very specific immigration statuses. These are probably the most commonly seen, but this is also a clickable link. So once you have the PowerPoint, you can see everyone. If there's an undocumented parent of a U.S. citizen child, they can apply for, on behalf of their U.S. citizen child. Their household size will be dependent on the number of U.S. citizens in there, so it's not going to be considering the adult in that money amount, right? So it would be less than if they would be a citizen, but they can get it for their U.S. citizen child. In terms of what is available, and that's not going to impact the parent's application for food stamps if they're doing it on behalf of a child, if they're applying before USCIS on public charge. For things that don't have immigration status requirements, there are many: food pantries, school nutrition programs, pandemic EBT, which we don't have in Texas, but we should be advocating for because it allows states to provide meal replacement benefits for kids who would have gotten meals in schools but aren't getting them because schools are closed. And then WIC, disaster SNAP, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, those do not have immigration status requirements. Wanted to finally talk about evictions and utilities in Texas. You all probably heard that the Texas Supreme Court has an emergency order to temporarily stop most evictions. That's been extended through April 30th, which is coming up soon. So we'll see if there's another extension. People still have to pay rent for that. And once the moratorium is lifted, eviction cases will continue in court. There's also a moratorium through the CARES Act which is specific for homes and rental units that are covered by federally backed mortgages. So this is a 120-day moratorium plus 30-day notice that employers must give. So it basically gives tenants protections against eviction through August 23rd. And I've shared a website here which covers some of the homes. It's going to be big multifamily units, so people who are in smaller units are not going to, it won't show up here, and it's not comprehensive, but it's a worthwhile tool to look and see if you have someone who is in a unit where they're getting a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac mortgage, and this CARES moratorium applies to them. For folks who are getting eviction notices, there's several steps that a landlord has to go through in order to get someone evicted. We've heard from Refugee Services of Texas that they've been seeing some predatory evictions coming up with landlords charging late fees or threatening to call ICE on residents. It's definitely scary for folks. When ICE is called, it's unlikely that they're going to come, but it's certainly a threat that people take seriously. But that being said, they still have to follow this process regardless of whether or not someone's a U.S. citizen. And if you hear of anyone who has these issues, they can go to Lone Star Legal Aid and Houston Volunteer Lawyers if this process is not being followed. And for people who have already an eviction or a notice to vacate, there are some cash assistance and rent assistance funds, some of yours, I believe, and they require that eviction notice in order to get cash assistance. And with utilities, the Texas Public Utility Commission has stopped utility shutoffs until the state's emergency declaration or disaster declaration has been lifted. So that is not natural gas, but CenterPoint has stopped shutoffs until future notice. And this is details about how a person can stop their utilities from being shut off. I wanted to now kind of end on the resources and share some of those with you. So we have an immigrant rights hotline that's staffed Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 by Boat People SOS, Baker Ripley, and United We Dream. And immigrants can call there directly for referrals to immigration legal services providers, for answers about many of these COVID-related questions. DACA Supreme Court decision might be happening any day now. So once we know, we'll update our hotline operators and they can give information on that. So this is a great resource for your clients. And then for you, we have two resources. One is our COVID-19 resource document. It's a living document. It's a Google Doc for immigrant advocates here in Houston. And I'm going to pull it up for you guys right now. So essentially, anyone can make updates. We have a bunch of information, table of contents. So let's say a client comes in and says, my court case, I don't know if my court case is happening, what's going on. You can go here, go to immigration court, and then you see there's no hearing scheduled through May 15th, and they'll receive a hearing notice. So you can tell them that. And if you see, oh, it got updated, it's actually May 30th, you plug that in there. Well, yours is going to show up as a suggestion. Mine isn't, I'm in edit mode, but it'll show up as a suggestion, and then we can accept or reject it. And if you look through here and you see that we're missing something, please add to it, because again, we don't have a full-time staff person dedicated to just updating this. And as Margaret noted, things are changing every day. And so if you can help, if this is a useful resource for you, then please add back into it and make it a better resource for everyone. And as you can see, we've got some people in there right now looking at it. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys is Access Hue, which you can search for COVID-19 emergency programs and find help. And you'll see here a lot of them listed are your very own programs, disaster relief and recovery, coronavirus relief, disaster relief, right? So it'll come up. Now let's say you are Easter Seals and you say, oh, great, we're here, it's only our phone number, but actually these are our requirements and we have a website also and we would love for this to be in here. Well, you can do that. It's super easy. So you just go to our editor and you can choose your agency nope, I did it wrong. Sorry, guys. You go to edit, not add new. And you would go to, you know, whatever it is, let's say Baker Ripley. And in their utility assistance program, you want to make some edits. So you click to it. You can help complete the profile, and now you can come into the next steps, call for more information. Actually, we changed that. Now we need to see a copy of your utility bill, a copy of your bank statement. Hopefully not, that's pretty onerous, but whatever it is, right? And then you update it by hitting save down here, and it will automatically be entered into our database because we're in disaster mode. So disaster mode means everything goes in automatically instead of going through our usual vetting process where members of our Access to Services community make sure that everything is accurate in there before it goes live. And then this will be vetted a little more slowly so that we're not holding up information just to ensure that it's vetted, but we are still looking at everything that gets added new. So I strongly encourage you to go to that website, make use of it, and add your organization's information to it. And I'm gonna, again, you have this information. If you want it immediately, it's right here. And if you want to wait until the PowerPoint, that's fine too. And I believe we now have very limited amount of time for questions. I'm so sorry, I totally went over.
You did just fine, Andrea. We were running a little long, so you did great. I don't have any questions yet, but I do want to point people to the chat box. Oh no, never mind. There's nothing there either. So let me give them a couple of seconds to see if anybody has any last minute questions.
Yeah, and while people think about that, I'll just say, if you go into that COVID-19 resource document that I shared and something isn't there that you want to see there, then you can also add a comment and say, hey, please add this. I don't know the answer to it, but can someone help find the answer to it? And that's useful too.
Yeah, great. Looks like you answered everybody's question, Andrea.
Okay, so I'm basically giving the same webinar again next Friday. So I will share the link with Diana. I don't think it's going to be anything more than this. We're going to have a second half going in more detail about local resources that are available. So if you want to join for that, you're welcome. But it's probably going to be the same, at least for my portion of it, a little slower.
Just a quick point before we end. We will continue to offer webinars. We know that this is a really, complicated time and there's a lot of information flying. So we will continue to offer these opportunities as optional for our grantees and continue to record them and make them available. So if you have recommendations for future webinars, we definitely want to hear from you in terms of what you all really feel you need in terms of key information.
Great, thank you, Diana. And I want to thank Josie and Andrea for graciously being with us today, sharing all their information. I want to thank all of you for everything that you're doing and for being with us and learning a little bit more about walking through these ever-changing waters with us, and wish you all the best today and have a great weekend.